Good afternoon. How are you? Well, the temperature is 60 degrees and it's kind of overcast and it could rain, although the humidity is only at 55 according to Thomas Jefferson, and the wind is a little up at 7.2 miles an hour. So that's about where we are. This is a great location to walk because you can see the mountains to my right, and I don't know, there's something about the uplifting experience of nature, including its heights, its natural heights. But getting back down to earth, what are we talking about? We're still talking about the shutdown. It's clear from some of the conversation, the Republicans think they have to do something. And maybe it is to help people who are overweight lose their weight with prescription drugs. I don't know. But there has been a proposal on the Hill, and I don't want to get your hopes up, so I say I believe it's going to fail. Although I'm doing this late in the day, and who knows, I may find out that I'm wrong when I when I look at what I've said. But here's the idea. The idea is to end the shutdown and extend health care for 1 year. And this would be a bipartisan bill to address Republican charges, and it would open up a path of partial but not sufficient cooperation. Now, I suppose the omission, as far as I understand from the report by the Democrats and the coalition they've tried to put together, is that they're assuming that SNAP will be taken care of for the month and therefore could be dealt with once government opens up again. So I haven't heard anybody say that, so I don't know. That's a logical consideration. But anything that happens requires a vote. And after the vote, it requires a signature of the president. And Trump has made it pretty clear he wants them to eliminate the filibuster. And so you probably know this, so forgive me for repeating it, but the filibuster is a supermajority. It's 60 votes instead of a simple majority. And it's harder to get. But the point of the difficulty is to have the nation's representatives supporting a very important aspect of governing. So the argument for a filibuster is to make better decisions that reflect what the nation wants. Now, if you eliminate that, and it's a simple majority, then that aspect of the rule and its ability to serve the nation's governance goes out the window, because then the only break is, do you have a majority? And on things like this, indeed, the fight itself shows how important it is to get this right. We're talking about 43 million who are on SNAP, and they're not immigrants. They're Americans. They're of all sorts of ages. They suffer from disability. They can't work. And the Republicans, at least before the election, and I assume they're still doing it because I posted a letter from a fundraiser for a Republican candidate for governor of New York that's coming up. And they seem unreconstructed in terms of dealing with the truth of the matter, which is more likely to foster a reasonable piece of legislation. It's so obvious. So the Republicans need 5 votes. And while Trump may think we should eliminate the filibuster and just win it in 10 minutes because they have the majority, Thune, who's the majority leader in the Senate, Republican, he has stood by the filibuster so far. And he stands by it for the reasons I've said. Now, can that get tortured? Can that get changed? Sure it can. So, but that's how it is for the present. The question of this proposed deal that I discussed, well, they've already gone to Johnson, a legend in his own mind, who has a deep voice and a thin brain and no heart and can't tell the truth, and he is so in over his head and the whole nation's at risk because of it. Okay, so having made that prelude of my view of Speaker Johnson, an embarrassment to the Republican Party as well. The grand old party has now got this petite young representative who is such an ideological doormat for Trump, he couldn't possibly do what's necessary to lead the House into a place that one could consider governing. So he's basically said he won't approve a bill that comes across to the House that includes this support of ACA, Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. So that suggests that when you hear this, there still has been nothing to open up the government. Now, Thune, to his credit, is going to have Senate in session all weekend. People are going to be leaning and threatening people back and forth. I'd feel better if it was someone other than Schumer who is heading the troops in the Democratic caucus in the Senate, but it is what it is. He has held that line so far. And you could ask, why would a man who in the past has shown such intellect and political savvy? And the answer is, he is the senator from Wall Street. And he's always going to have to make a deal if he's that senator. And it's shown. Now, this fight that he's put together, I'm sure he's displeased his natural base. So that's where we stand on that. You know, and there's a question that's unbelievable to me. Are we going to pay back pay for furloughed workers? Absolutely. I had a conversation with another Hill rat. I say another as if I'm still there, and I'm not, but she is. And they're concerned about being paid for the time that they weren't considered essential enough to a house that went out of business, probably because of Epstein and not the shutdown. And if that sounds like a convoluted bit of logic, that is the logic of the great asshole Johnson. I'm sorry, I couldn't think of another word, but I think that's a fairly modest way to describe his failure of character, of truth, of leadership, and his oath of office. I mean, now, it's kind of interesting when you consider the babble that's going on the Republican side. So, Megyn Kelly, whom I appeared when she was on Fox years ago, she's a very different person. I think so. I don't know. Maybe she's changed. Maybe she was that person then. She doesn't think Muslims should hold office in America. You know, how do you have a conversation with a person like that? Why do you go on the air and talk to them and listen to them, you know, talk this nonsense? Now, it's kind of interesting because she's on the other side of another issue, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Because I think it's interesting to consider some of the costs that we have. And one of them is a brain drain. And it goes like this. Our programs inviting people from other countries and giving them H-1B visas and other visas, student visas, that allow them to study here are an invite to get the best education in science and engineering, abstract and otherwise. I can't say anywhere on the planet, but this has been one place to go. And when I was undergraduate, my studies were in physics and engineering, and later on I got a master's in information science. But the point of my experience is that we had visitors, and we had women at a time when they were discriminated against in a variety of ways, even going to school. So we had women from other nation states, and we had others from different countries. And what happens when they come here? If they enjoy it and they make a place for themselves, they want to join the people in America who are in science. But what have we done? This guy Trump is chasing them out of our nation. When I was an undergraduate student and thought I'd end up in science, or it was one of my considerations, it struck me that the advances in science at that time might be in Russia. And I thought, well, normally you might want to study Russian so you could appreciate what they were doing. But I thought we wouldn't have access to it. So I studied German instead for that reason. Not to go to the UN and be a translator, but because I thought I'd reach a point if I stayed on science that I wanted to understand what they were doing. And so knowing some German and learning more would be that path. Well, what do you think is going on when we are chasing people with great minds and a past affection for America? They chose to come here, and we're basically chasing them out of the country. And do you know where they're going? They're going to China. The story in the Post today is that China is luring our scientists to their place. Now, in terms of blow-ups and how these people wrap themselves around an axle, there's a fellow, Nick Fuentes. He's a racist. He's a Holocaust denier. He praises Hitler, and he denies the October 7th slaughter in Israel. Okay, so anti-Semitic, I don't think that's an exaggeration. And he claims, by the way, that the October 7th attack never happened, wasn't real. Now, Tucker Carlson is a fella who has gone out there and had him on as a guest for 2 hours and didn't push back when this guy Fuentes spread his poison on the airwaves in the streaming podcast. And Carlson himself, he's got a history that's not so great, in which he called Zionism a brain virus. If you have a specific objection to anything, you can spell it in the detail, but you can't just label it and then have me believe that what you have to say is right. Now, the next step is, it's because Tucker Carlson's an anti-Semite, so he just says whatever allows him to talk trash, in this case, about Jews, the Jewish state, and the complex Middle Eastern situation. So, now it shouldn't surprise us, therefore, that he would have Fuentes on. But the Heritage Foundation is connected to Tucker, and there's been a big uproar, and they want to do a cancel culture number on Carlson. And the leader of the gang, Kevin Roberts, has been taking a beating for being friends with Tucker Carlson. Now, I think it's a plague on both your houses. The Heritage Foundation, what do we think of them these days? Well, they got a whole bunch of their own sins. And it shouldn't surprise me that they would screw up who they're associated with, and that they would be dealing with anti-Semitic or Nazi favor. Of course this is who they're with. And this is why we shouldn't be supporting either. Shouldn't be supporting the Heritage Foundation, should be criticizing Tucker Carlson. Megyn Kelly, on this issue, she's opposed to Tucker Carlson. Go figure. These people, I think, just want to spread their voices on the airwaves, and if it occasionally, sort of like a clock, once a day, hits something that makes sense, then that's the best they could do. It's a pretty amazing situation. Now, I won't beat to death the question of our Trump regime giving a damn about healthcare, but if there was ever a picture of the incompetence, it was when a man in the Oval Office, some say fainted. I don't know if it was a stroke or what it was, so we haven't heard the story. Or was it COVID? Wouldn't that be ironic? But if there are details, I haven't heard them or seen them. So what did Trump do? He froze in place. RFK Jr., after the fact, said he ran out of the room to get a chair. You mean there wasn't a single chair in the Oval Office? And Dr. Oz apparently went over. And I don't know, I guess if they thought he was lightheaded, they wanted to get more air, blood to the brain. And so instead of having him lean forward, they took a chair and leaned it backwards. I don't know. It's the gang that can't shoot straight. And this is the danger. They know so little that they couldn't possibly, if they had it in their will to help others, to be benevolent despots. These people are a 3-alarm, 10-alarm fire. We should be throwing that red substance that they use for huge fires in California. It should be thrown all over the White House. And these people should not be allowed to go out without somebody standing with them 24/7. But we still move like we're moving through quicksand, unable to make the obvious decisions to end this nightmare that compromises us all at home and abroad. So anyhow, that's what I got to say. And so I say good evening from my cathedral of trees, and I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.